the place where singles shine, celebrating life, divine by design. In faith and love, we intertwine. Route 77, where your journey's prime.
Welcome back to the Route 77 podcast. Today we ask a question that might hit a little too close to home. Whose fault is it that I'm single? It's not just a pity party. We're digging into the deeper reasons behind the question. Just like the disciples asked Jesus who sinned to make a man blind, we often wrestle with the same mindset about our own lives. Is it me? Is it them? Is it God? Is it the system? Or is it just life in a broken world? Join us as we untangle blame, confront church and cultural pressures, and share some personal stories and laughs. And ultimately remind ourselves that singleness is not a curse, it's a season with a purpose. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Route 77 podcast. I am your host, Natasha, and I am here with Monique.
Well, hello.
And David.
Hello.
Mid yawn. I was like, I can't stop the yawn. Sorry.
Wow.
Contagious, even when you're not even in the same room.
Yeah. So, Monique and David, who sinned? Why are you single?
I did. Yep, I'm
Yeah.
the bad girl. Oh, this thing?
This is the topic
thing.
today.
This is the
Whose fault is it that I'm single? Is it my fault? Is it God's fault? Is it a random other person's fault? My parents' fault? Is their thing? So it has to we're just kind of hitching on to John 9, 1-3, when the disciples said, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus replied, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." So a lot of times, like we might, I listened to last week's sermon from Gateway, and again, Monique heard this one, and so he basically says, like, a lot of times when something happens, like somebody got cancer and you're like, oh, are they smokers? Oh, well, that's why they got cancer. Or like you need to find a reason why some things happen or don't happen.
Yeah, it was a good message.
Yeah. And it's happened so much with singles because one, you start to question yourself. Like, what have I done? Why is God not blessing me? Because he said he blesses those with, with a husband and a wife and children and all these things. Like, why am I not getting these blessings? Have I done something? What have I not done? What have I done? Like all those things, you do start to question yourself when it's something that you really want.
Yeah.
And you see everyone around you getting it and you're trying to figure out like what they have that you don't have.
And I did that for a lot of years, a lot, 30 years. Why I couldn't be Amber's mom. I'm Amber's mom.
Yeah.
But I couldn't raise her because I was a bad mom and I didn't deserve it. So I get that saying. And it's the same with, with being single and not having a partner and not finding anybody, is that I'm just the worst sinner on the planet and I don't deserve it. Mm-hmm. I had those thoughts. So this topic.
And you can also kind of be resentful, especially when you see other people that maybe you're going, well, I'm not as bad as that person or something.
I know. And I did have that. It's like, how in the heck this person and they're drug addicts and how come they're finding it? Like, yeah, but do you want what they're having? No.
Yeah. But even then you kind of look at them and go, well, I'm as unattractive as that person. So they found somebody.
And you start to you question and you judge harshly. I don't think we tend to blame our parents. Like I didn't blame my parents, but I
neither did I.
Definitely blamed myself a lot. Yeah. So this opening, really, thank you. You should just say, so that's our podcast. Thank you. And, see you later. All right. I'm just going to go and hide myself in a corner now. And, I feel like that worm in the garden. Oh, no, maybe I should just go out into the garden and eat some worms. Oh, that's the thing. That's the saying. Yeah. So,
early bird. So we get
Thoughts on-
so many. How about you, David? Have you ever had these thoughts?
Sorry, thoughts on what?
That maybe they're like why you haven't found somebody. Is it because like you look at yourself and they're like, oh, what did I do wrong, or
Oh,
what?
okay.
That type
Yeah.
of thing.
No, not particularly. I mean, throughout the podcasts, we expressed that singleness is more of like it's like a social status. Right?
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
not through. Okay, let me rephrase. We expressed throughout the podcast that it's not something that is a punishment towards that person,
No.
in a sense,
No.
right? And I think that's what you were trying to get at with. I think that's what you were trying to get at with John 1, because John, that particular verse you used was specifically dealing with suffering, right? Right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time people might have the interpretation being single is like some sort of punishment. Again, the sinning stuff. But I never really saw it like that. So no, I don't never grasped onto the idea that this is a punishment onto myself or something my parents did. It's kind of just social construct or social status that I
Mhm.
think people hold in
Yep.
too high
But
regards.
I think too that people will come at you with that idea. Like I said, like our pastor gave an example, like when somebody gets cancer, you kind of like try to find out what caused it. Oh, it's because they smoked or they ate too many carbs or I don't know, whatever it is. They'll come up with some reason why it's there. And yes, there is sometimes like outside of your body reasons why you can get cancer. Like if you smoke or whatever. But sometimes we go, well, they didn't even smoke. They ate healthy. They exercise all the time. Like, why did this even happen? Like, we try to find a reason,
Mhm.
why, even though, yes, sometimes there is physiological reasons, but why were you specifically, geared
Yeah.
towards getting cancer that other people can smoke their entire life? They go, oh, they smoked till they were, 112 when they passed away and they never, it was nothing. Like there's always like how can they live that long and have had such a
Yes.
unhealthy
Yeah.
lifestyle?
So fascinating enough, a lot of the times I think people try to find something that they did wrong that's more present than anything. What did I do within my lifetime? And I think a lot of the people that we're addressing here are probably not believers who don't actually see the initial sin of eating the fruit off the tree, Adam and Eve, right? Eve being deceived by the serpent, because that's the initial sin, and that's the effective cause of the cancer of
Yeah.
everything, right? So
But
you
I
don't
think
see
even as
that, and then I think what we see is unbelievers doing that, or if we see believers, we also see them trying to push this on the present. What did I do in the present that either my parents or I did that is now causing it? But I think it stems a lot further back.
well, it does, yes, definitely. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of his point is that like what Jesus said, it's like neither of those is the reason why this happened to this man. And he's not saying that it wasn't horrible that this man was blind. But he was able to heal him. But I think when you look at it, like I had somebody write me a letter from my church, and I mentioned it a couple times before, basically telling me if I would just act more like a woman, then I would be able to find a husband.
So he was causing blame, and you were taking that blame and going, oh, so this is why I'm still single, is because I'm not woman enough.
Yeah, or like
But
I always think about it. It is kind of insulting, but at the same time, I understood like he was trying to come at it. He was very young, and he was trying to come at it, in a helpful way. Like he wasn't trying to bash me or anything, but he was trying to help me from his perspective. So I do look at it like that. So I don't feel like resentment towards him or anything. But it was just like that idea where it was like we had to find out why this thing was wrong with me, because basically that's what people would think, is that the singleness is what's wrong with me. And why else would it be if it wasn't something that I was doing?
Yep. And and a lot of times we ourselves may not have those thoughts. We just like, we're single, we're happy. I have no there's no reason why I'm single, is I just want to be single. But sometimes it's because other people, we have that. And it's like Pastor Bird had said, by the way, it was a different pastor. It was our former pastor. We're going into our 75th year as a church. And he retired just the year before COVID. And then Pastor Justin started.
In COVID, yeah.
And we were about to have a celebration, and then they shut all the churches down, and he was just like, oh, well, welcome to Gateway. He had to be introduced to us over video. So that was kind of a wild time. But Pastor Bird had been preaching at Gateway for 27 years. He had actually been asked to come to another church, I think in Langley, and he had asked the congregation and got a resounding no. You are not leaving us. We will not share you with nobody. He was the reason. It was his preaching that actually kept me going to Gateway initially when it was still First Abbotsford CRC, because his messages stayed with me. Like, he would preach the message, and I'd been to many churches like, oh yeah, that was a good message, and I'd walk out the doors and, what was the message about? But with Pastor Bird is like, oh, I've got to tell you, it was about this and this and this and this and this, and he said this and this, and it was just like, whoa. And so that made me stay because I liked his preaching. So whenever he's a guest preacher, it's always a treat. So yeah, so when he was preaching, that was one of the things he said. He says that a lot of times it's somebody else that thinks that. It's like, oh. So we say, I've been diagnosed with this lung cancer. And they go, oh, and they think, oh, you poor thing. But in their head, they're thinking, oh, I wonder how many years they smoked to get that kind of cancer.
Yeah.
And this is our preconceived judgments that we have, that we put on other people. And as a single person, we get that too.
Yeah. And I think sometimes there's a truth to it, in a sense of like, yeah, we don't help ourselves if we smoke, I guess they're finding some things that are carcinogenic or that can lead to cancer. So, I mean, we should listen, use our common sense and listen to these things. So there is a sense where we can't just say, not my fault, for everything. There are consequences. But when we say it as like,
judgment,
like, it's almost like that makes sense because of this. So they try to make sense of it within a worldly context. Like David was saying, even Christians will do this. Like, they don't make sense of it within an eternal, like, starting with the fall, understanding where, like, that it's like, oh, it's because of sin. Like, that's not where we go with our head.
No. And we shouldn't. Like, if somebody comes to us asking for prayer and say, I've got this, it's the same, like Amber with her tumor. And everyone like, well, how did she get that?
Because
we don't know.
Grew over time.
Yeah.
Was it like you can?
Nope.
It's like somebody broke into the house and inserted it. Like, it's just happened. It's like, that's what happens. It's as a sin.
Yep. And okay, so, she's on a lot of medications and she's got this and that. And maybe that was the reason why we want a reason.
Yeah.
We need a reason, because if we don't have a reason, then it doesn't make sense to us.
But what's funny is, like what David pointed out, is that the reason is sin. And we don't often accept that or consider that for a long time until like
as a whole and not a specific. Because like I said, like from the fall, our world has been slowly degenerating over time, and we want to stop it. We want everything to be perfect, and I think this is the part of us that says, yes, what is happening is not fair. It's not right. And it's not how it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Boils down to us wanting justice for the wrongs that we experience and we see other people experience.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so, and the thing is too, when sometimes you're not even thinking those things, and then people like lay it on you, and then you feel guilty because they're like, well, maybe I did cause this. Like maybe I was a smoker and that's where it came from. So then or whatever it is, or maybe I did something and that's why, whatever. and then you start going, well, then it is my fault. Like if
Right.
it weren't for me, then it wouldn't have happened. So like then you almost feel like you're not worthy of asking for prayer or help
Forgiveness.
when you're, or even like if you're single and you feel like maybe it was all my fault. And even if you can come to the place of acceptance of singleness and you're completely okay with it, things like that, like you feel like you can't ever like actually ask people for help dealing with maybe getting to that point, like dealing with not being married and you really want to be, because then you're like, well, it's all my fault anyway. So what am I gonna, like, it's, how can I ask for help with this?
And
then you
it
feel
might
that.
be, and I think in a different sense, the help we might be asked, like if you have a home and you need some maintenance work and you're kind of like, well, I don't know who to ask for help. And they say, well, if you had a husband, he would be able to do this for you.
Yeah. And you're like, so what's my second choice?
It doesn't really work with me. I can't
Well,
really fix stuff if I can't see the screw.
and there's some guys who aren't like that, who can't do
No.
that within, like, for the life of them. And there's women who can do it. Like, it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the gender roles that we somehow assign. There's, it's like, yeah, your husband's not going to be able to get pregnant and have a baby for you. Like, there's certain things that you can't, switch over. But generally, like,
Well, it's like my late husband, he couldn't fix, tried. It was just like, just get out of the way. I could change a faucet.
but it's almost worse if you messing something up and then trying to go get help.
Monique's
And then it's
breathing heavily. Bringing back some memories there, are we?
When it's only so much as just a little thing inside in a washer, it's not that hard to fix. But when it's all over the floor, what are you doing?
Yeah, those type of personality disorders don't have much patience.
No.
And if it's not done like immediately, then they slowly get more frustrated
And start throwing things. Yep.
Yeah, including tantrums.
Yep.
So for me to have been told that by someone about like me being single, if only I would, do more, like at church, I would go and wash the dishes while they, instead of, talking with people, like, even though there was plenty of people in washing the dishes after like a church meal. Like, it was just like,
why are you helping out in the
are
kitchen?
your
Is that what
hands broken? Like, it doesn't, because I'm a woman, I have to go and wash the dishes. Like, what is?
Yep.
So
I had the you're too intimidating. I'm very strong-willed. I am not one to, and very. This was something that my late used to say, is that I was too opinionated, which is probably why I like that one podcast, because I can relate. Yeah, she's over opinionated, and I like that. I like that title. I was like, that's me, over opinionated. I like that.
It's like,
and I think that when you hear that, when they say you're too intimidating, I think one of the things that it is that it's your intelligence and your emotional intelligence. And if that person is intimidated by your intelligence and your emotional intelligence, then that person is not the right person for you, because that person will beat you down until you have dropped below their level. And that's what happened with me. And then I left him, and then he got cancer and I felt pity, and then he died. And now I'm back to my over opinionated, wonderful self.
And yet what is interesting too is, like, we can say things like, why did that person get cancer? Why did their child die? Why did they have an accident? Why did all these horrific things happen? And yet, why are they asking that about singleness? Like, is it so horrific that there needs to be an answer?
There's going to be a reason.
Like, there's a reason why. There's something negative as to why you're not married. And that in itself is very disturbing, because it just well, then you start going, well, there must be something wrong with me because, we're supposed to get married. And if we don't get married, then what am I? And then, especially when they say like, you should be a wife and a mother, that's what the highest calling you can have. And then you're like, well, if I can't have the highest calling, like what's wrong with me? Or am I like less blessed? I get a secondary calling, like a less important one.
Why do they call that the highest calling? That's what I want to know.
And I think it ultimately is just a pushback against society. Like I said, like I've said before, like it's always like one extreme to the other, where basically the society's telling women like they don't need a man, they don't need children, just be
You don't
blah,
need
blah,
to
blah,
get
blah,
married.
blah.
You could just live together. That way, if you get
Yeah, you
tired
keep
of
your
each other,
independence, whatever. Instead, and then the church goes completely the other direction because they want to show the importance of these things, which is true. It's important that women and men be good mothers and fathers when they're called to be so. And it's good for men and women to be husbands and wives because it says that. But it doesn't say it's the best. It's the best thing or the highest calling. But again, it's that reactionary, like we need to push back with equal and opposite force. And it always ends up going too far and becoming just as wrong mentality as the other direction. It's just, it because especially in this day and age where things are like so much more and more and more extreme, like your views have to be completely one way or completely the other. Like if you don't agree with me, then you're the enemy. Then there's no room for a moderation or a moderate middle ground. And so when it comes to singleness, it's like if you're trying to find a reason why, what's wrong with you, as to why you're single. And I remember I was on this, like, I'm on a few Facebook groups for singles. I'm not looking for somebody, just, it's not a dating one as much as it's just like people talking. And this one person goes like, why do you think you're single? And I just put, because I'm not married. And then people kind of laughed at that because like, that's the reason. The reason you're single is because you're not married. Like that's the definition of being single. And so it's just, yeah, so you get the thing from the society, from the non-Christians telling you why you're single. You're too independent, you're too needy, you're intimidating, you must be too picky, blah, blah, blah. And you get some of that within the church. But then you get like what I got in a sense, where it's just like, if you just served more and trusted God more, or maybe there's sin that you'd have to deal with, like, the whole, like, you need to work on yourself until you're ready, like until you're marriage material or whatever. So it's just like, yeah, it's just so you feel like you're always basically they're blaming you ultimately, the people in the church. If you just served more, that's your fault. If you just trusted God more, that's your fault. Maybe there's sin you need to deal with, that's your fault. So the reason that you're single, it's your fault.
And it's funny because I kind of went, I'm curious, what is the highest calling as a Christian? I could say, we could ask, but I logged onto this thing from Amy Carroll. Your highest calling isn't what you think. And I'm just kind of glancing through with my speed reading eyes. And I caught on to this. She said, I've often mistaken my highest calling as something I'm supposed to do rather than someplace I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, and I just thought like the highest calling is the calling that God's giving you in the moment.
Yeah.
What?
And
It doesn't really
which one?
make...
Monique?
Yeah, Monique's like... that saying of Monique's like...
It's not mine. I didn't do it.
Oh, okay.
The one that she read.
Okay,
you read.
well, that saying is pretty much just like... It's not it's not what I'm supposed to do. It's where I'm supposed to be. But...
Yeah,
Would you just
if I
stand
come
there
to... No.
and do absolutely nothing? Like, I don't know.
No. It's we often think that that there is that the highest calling is an action. When it's
Well, there always
you're
has to be an action.
Be still and know that I am God. Is that an action?
Being still
Being
is
still.
your action.
Yeah.
So,
but it's more like, I think what it is, it's like you're getting married, you're having children. Like these things are things that you have control of doing, in a sense, that you as a human person can do, instead of like where God's calling you to be, where it's sort of more supernatural in the sense that you don't always go in the direction you think you're supposed to go. And if you just if you spend your time really trying to hear where God wants you to be, like where he's pulling you, where he's nudging you towards, then that is your calling. Is just your calling is God. Your highest calling is God. And so it's more about where he's leading you in the moment of now, or even where you think that he was leading you in the future. But a lot of the times the pathway from here to there is much different than you thought it was.
Yeah. But she's saying it's the word calling, I think, that seems to trip people up, I think, maybe. Because she says it feels like it's like some sort of special profession or something like that, right? So like the dictionary calls it a profession or occupation. But the one we most commonly think of is a strong urge toward a particular way of life or career. So as Christians, we identify God as the source of that strong urge. So the word calling sometimes seems too big for us. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's like this little like on a pedestal thing. This calling.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's why when we said, I'm called to be married. So you're lifting that marriage thing way up to where it's not supposed to be.
Jesus only ever called us to do one thing.
Go and make
disciples of all nations.
Yes. And I think what people do is they take that so-called calling and they apply it to whatever the second thing is. Right?
Yeah. And I think they say, like Monique said, they feel a calling to be married. So therefore, that's what they think. They feel a call. They think they feel a calling to be married. And then, but I think, do you really feel a calling to something you don't have a choice about? Like, I think about Elizabeth Elliot's first husband, Jim. She talks about how when he first basically told her that he had feelings for her, he said, "But I feel like God's calling me to be single." So like he had the choice in a sense of, pursuing a relationship or remaining single. So he felt a call in one direction, which eventually he said, "But if it does change, you're the type of woman that I would like to marry." So they actually did. So yeah, like, so God can change, calling can change in the sense of where he's directing you.
Yeah. I think
But in the moment,
it wasn't 10 years before they actually got married?
Yeah, I'm not sure the length of time, but
Yeah, I'm not
I know
sure.
that they did go their separate ways. In the sense of like, if God, his feeling was if God meant them to be together, then he would bring them back together. But in that moment, he felt called to be single. And a lot of people, like, if you go, "I feel called to be married," well, is marriage an option right now? And if you're not seeing anybody or there's no one available, then it's not really are you really called to that? That's kind of my question. So you could say, "I feel a calling to be a doctor." Okay, you can try to pursue that. But if that never becomes an option for you, like say you just really bad at biology or you throw up at the sight of blood and you can't stop it, whatever, like, does that mean that God was wrong, or or was it that God was calling you to do a certain path and you just assumed that was what the end goal was?
You got to be able to recognize when you create the opportunities that you feel like you're being called for and the opportunities presented to you by in which God creates himself. And I feel like a lot of people, what's the right word for this? A lot of people think that the opportunity is presented by God when they're desperately trying to create it themselves.
Yeah, that's totally true. And I think that's why a lot of people get into marriages that they later would have said either they weren't ready for, they wouldn't have chose it later in life, or that it's ultimately an abusive one or a bad or really unhealthy marriage, because they believed they felt that calling, so they created the situation in which they could make it happen, instead of.
But that is also not necessarily true. You can be, if God provides you with an opportunity that you interpret as a calling that creates a bond between two people, both parties have to accept that opportunity. You could be actually doing God's, in a sense, calling by taking the opportunity, but the other person doesn't.
Yeah.
Because that's what free choice is. That's what free will is, essentially.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I remember like one of the things that we talked about when the whole courtship thing was a big thing. And I think it can apply to dating in a sense because they always see like, oh, I had a breakup. It was horrible. It was bad. All this type of stuff. And I remember them talking about how even a courtship that ended in the two people not getting married was just as successful as one where they do because they realized that they were not like meant to get married. Like they whatever it is that happened, they realized this wasn't where they were being called for or their whatever. And I think that sometimes we see things like that as such a negative, like, oh, because if it becomes like a habit, then there might be something that you need to address. But if you actually come to the place where you're like, you know what, as much as this may hurt in the moment, we don't think this is where we should be going with our relationship and you split up, that can be just as much a successful courtship / dating because hopefully the purpose that you went into it was to see if the person was somebody you wanted to marry or spend their life with. And so if you found out you didn't, then that can be considered a success, even if it was like kind of heart
No,
hurt in the middle.
no, that's not biblical though. The only reason the only reason you would ever have to split up or get a divorce is because of sexual immorality.
Well, I
So
mean,
No,
even
no,
if-
before marriage.
before you got-
Before
Oh, okay.
marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought you were somehow
No.
emphasizing within it. Okay.
Just
No.
dating.
just dating
Okay.
or courting, just
Yeah.
so where they actually were. The purpose was that. That's why they talk about like the recreational dating is not healthy because the purpose of that is nothing. It's just to go and have fun and maybe hook up. But the purpose of dating was originally just to find
see
out
if
if you're
compatible and
compatible with the person and you had, whatever common goals or, pursue.
same values,
far-
same morals.
Yeah, like that was the purpose of doing that. And same with courtship. That's technically the purpose was, to help just do that in a safer environment of people being more accountability essentially is what it was trying to do. But like a lot of times we see when things fall apart or even if because it would be very difficult for some people. Like I had a guy that it's hard to say, I guess. I don't even know. We weren't officially dating or anything. We just hung out a lot because we were in Taekwondo together in university. And I know he was developing feelings for me. And I just had nothing for him that way. He's kind of like a brother. He used to fool around like a brother. And I just didn't see him that way. And I know it like really hurt him when I kind of just said, like, I don't think that's the direction that I'm okay to go in. But he ultimately, he did find somebody and get married and have kids. So like, even though he went through that difficult time of when I said I wasn't interested in that direction of things, like it was better because like that was not where we were supposed to go. But we often see those things as like a bad thing. And sometimes like, we're in a world where sin and pain and emotions and things can go wrong. And can go bad and there's hurt and things like that. And so, there will be times when we feel that. But when we look back there's many times when we go, oh, it was a good thing that happened because it stopped this or it kept this from happening. Or like we see that there was a purpose to it all. And I think sometimes too, like when we see the people being single and they're going through a time of hurt about not being married or not and potentially never being a parent, like actually having to struggle through those times. But if you can get through to the other side of understanding what it means to be single, what it means to be following God, then you can look back and say, you know what, it was a good thing that I didn't get married at that time or because then you see like where God is calling you in this moment. And if it was, if I was married, I couldn't do all the things that I'm doing right now because it wouldn't be fair to a husband to be so busy all the time.
You just you reminded me of something, and with that, Carrie, I remember one of our conversations. She says, I've gone on a couple of dates with these guys, and I like them and all, but I just don't feel that connection that they'd be somebody I'd want to spend the rest of my life with. And I said, then they're not the ones for you. And maybe that person may or may never show up.
You said the
Yeah.
wrong.
But it's true, because the person that did eventually show up for her, she's now married to George.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but
So
the thing is too,
she stopped dating. I don't know if she still went on dates. She may have just kind of hung out with friends and stuff like that. But I think she just kind of set aside the dating thing because she says it's just
well,
not working for me.
with her husband George, that was actually mutual friends of theirs who thought they should meet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but when you have these things where people are basically trying, even especially in the church, because they're the ones that are supposed to be supporting you, and they're the ones that you should hopefully trust the most for their advice, because it should be coming from a biblical perspective. But when they're saying things like, if you just serve more, trust more, work on yourself so that you become the spouse that God means you to be, you're just not there yet. It's like you're in the oven, but you're not ready. Like all these things, the timer hasn't dinged. Like all these things, then that's not helping.
Did somebody actually say that? You're in the oven, but you're not ready.
No, but that's what it sort of felt like.
We usually say that to a pregnant mom who's desperate to give birth. The bun is still in the oven. It's just not ready to come out yet.
But yeah, not really that specific thing that people said, but it was more like the idea that like you're not quite wifey enough yet, so you got to work on that. So you're not like it didn't specifically say that, but that was basically what I felt.
So,
like a lot of it had to do with
out of curiosity, how do they think that you're going to get experience of being a wife without actually being married to begin with?
Well, that's the thing. Like they want you to do what they consider wifey things, like cooking, cleaning.
Apparently,
sewing.
Hero needed a kiss before he.
But you have to clean You have to clean no matter what. You have to cook no matter what, because you got to eat something. Yeah. Those things are like essential life.
But what I would cook for myself wouldn't be acceptable.
Still not there.
It was so funny. I'm not kidding you. I was in university, and we have people from Kenya that would come to our university, like to study. And I think one time I bought pre-grated cheese because I don't normally, but I think I just did because I was doing so. Anyway, I had pre-grated cheese. And I ended up starting this conversation with these ladies about how I cook, and I'm like crap dinner, and like that was pretty much what I lived off university, like now, and all these things, and they're like, "Man, you wouldn't like if you were back in Kenya, like you would have been sent back to your grandmother, like that was like not even just your mother, you would have been sent back to your grandmother to and I just like the shock of their the shock from their cultural perspective, but that's sort of like the idea, like I had to not just cook for myself, but I had to cook. Like, I had to not just clean, but I had to
one of the this is one of the reasons why it's like students, because I have to cook all the time. I don't always want to cook all the time. Craft dinner, try that. I got boxes of it.
I lived on pizza. That's what I lived on. Pizza.
The only thing is that when nowadays, with the way they're actually saying that a lot of restaurants and places are shutting down because people just can't afford to eat out like they used to.
Yeah.
And it's
what I could barely afford to buy the groceries right now.
I know. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Yeah.
But just the idea, like if only I would fix what was wrong with me, then that would make me wifey enough material that I would attract a mate. I don't know. Like, I don't know. It took me so long. It took me at least until, like I said, when I left my ex. So I was 40 whenever I like left, I think, for 39, 40, because I think it was 2019. I separated at the end, so maybe I just turned 39. I sort of think about it as decades. So my 30s was with my ex, and then because he hung around, and that's a whole other. I mean, like 3 podcasts in one. Yeah.
Spin-off podcast.
So the life and times with Steven, yeah, that would be an entire podcast. I could keep that going for years. Just
it might actually be entertaining.
Yeah, like people are like, you should write a book, because nobody would believe what happened to me.
The funny thing is that when I left my husband, It was, I kept telling myself, don't be that dog going back to its vomit.
Jeez. That's already.
Oh, yeah. But then he developed cancer and, and he had nobody to help take care of him. He was kind of.
The vomit
to be
looks a little cleaner then.
But to be fair, I think you didn't go back with the feelings. You went back with just compassion in mind, and that wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you were going back to him because you emotionally went back to him. So,
Yeah,
that was the difference in that point. And I think, but that's just the thing. Like so many of these things I'm figuring out now that I'm in my 40s, and I'm just thinking today that I'm already halfway to 50 from in my 40s. This year I'll be 46. So I'm like, wait a second, I don't feel like I'm almost 50, but yeah, it's kind of like
I feel like
you're
I'm
going to be
almost 50.
46 this year.
yes, it's really weird.
I'm turning 30 in February.
Oh man, everybody in here is getting so old.
Yeah.
Where did the time go? And
Right?
that's the thing. And I think that's one of the things that I think affect the single people. And usually it's when you're in like from maybe 18, 19 until I got a pinch in my neck. Until you're like maybe 40, maybe 35. Because they have that sense of time running out.
Mm-hmm. And then they realize this maybe not so bad. Some people never get over it.
Yeah.
And that's like, you see them on social media when they're talking about it and how upset they are about the fact that they're still, single at 48 or, whatever. But I think the thing is like, when we look at things like, why are we trying to find a reason why this hasn't happened, especially for a single person? It can be the same for like all the things that we try to find reasons for. But we really like a cause and effect thing. We really like that because it helps us. We think we understand things better if we know why something's happened. So if this is if it's, if X happens, then Y should follow. Like we like that. It's part of how we are built. God's created the world to be a cause and effect world because if you stub your toe, it hurts. Like if you hit your toe with a significant force into an object, it hurts. Like why your toe got hurt. But that's the way that. But that's
I like to
not
keep walls.
Well, if you own a cat, you don't know where the scratches come from.
That's true.
Because
you have no recollection of any type of thing happening.
You go out for like the entire day, and then halfway through the day, you look down and there's like a fresh scratch mark, and you're like, I haven't been home all day.
Yes.
When did this one happen?
I'm like looking at it. I was like, where did that? What?
I know. I had one here, and I'm going.
I have no recollection.
I think it's selective. It's just like when you bash into something and you get this big bruise on your leg, and you kind of like,
when did I do that?
When did I do that?
Especially when it's ginormous. You're like,
yeah,
because I feel like I should have felt that. I should have remembered that traumatic event
for more than 5 seconds. I know, right? Yeah.
Just walking down the road, all of a sudden you're hopping on one leg. Where did my leg go?
Right.
So selective forgetting. Yeah.
But we really so because of that, singleness ends up becoming either a moral failure, something you've done morally that's wrong and God's, cursing you or not punishing you, or it's a character flaw. Like that person's single because of some personality trait or character flaw, which could be true. With my ex, should definitely be a reason why he should be single. I'm pretty sure he doesn't say that way, but whatever. That's not my problem anymore.
I'm too weird for most people.
Yeah, and that's the thing. As we get older, we just don't care anymore. We're just like, you know what? I'm going to totally embrace my weirdness, and if no guy wants to deal with that, that's their loss.
It's exhausting containing the weirdness. You just kinda...
tell me about it. Oh, I got a pinch in my neck. It hurts. It's right there. Well, it's a little bit more down there on my spine. I got physio tomorrow. I'm going to be grand.
Fix me.
Yep, I'm gonna.
An egg, like a fresh egg.
I told Daryl, I says, with all this cracking going on, how come I'm not glowing? That. Yeah.
So when we look at what Jesus says about the blind man, it's shifting the focus from blame assigning or finding to purpose. There's a purpose for things that happen. It's not that God causes everything to happen or he isn't powerful enough to stop things that happen, but he can redeem every situation, even ones where we've been sinful and we still might have to deal with consequences of our actions and things that happen and even sin in the world. Like a drunk driver hitting you or something. Like these things can happen, but there's always a purpose to these things, and that they happen so that the works of God might be displayed. Like I showed Monique the one podcast episode of Patsy Claremont, but she called it "God Uses Cracked Pots," because she said she had this vision of God like with this vase that was all cracked, it had been broken and pieced together, and that the glory of God was in this vase with the top on, but the glory would shine through the cracks. And so like that's why she called it that, because she had that vision from God about, even if you're cracked and broken, like God's glory will shine out through those cracks.
I wouldn't consider the cracks a broken aspect of it then.
Yeah. It's almost like being filled in with gold and it shines.
I was gonna say, like with the Japanese, I can't remember what the specific word for it is, but where they actually take a broken object and then they like seal it back together with gold in it, and so it actually creates a new beauty that wouldn't have been had it not been broken in the first place. And
that's a God thing.
Yeah, like redeeming and making something, worthwhile, and it kind of like. It shows you, like, even if you have a desire for marriage and children and you haven't come to the place of accepting whether that might be your entire life, might be single and childless. It might not, you don't know. But if you haven't got to that place, you can actually see that this is like God working in your life, not God punishing you. There's nothing wrong with you in the sense of that God's punishing you to being single, like as a punishment.
It's called kintsugi.
Oh, okay. What's
I'll see if that shows up.
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of trying to make it so that the light doesn't shine. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah.
That's actually very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so I like that. Oh, that's so pretty.
Monique's gone.
Yeah,
she's gone now. Rest of the podcast.
Just so that you know, I do have ADD and squirrel happens, and yes, I like shiny things.
That's it. We're gone. We're down to 2.
We're done. No, we're not. Oh, but I gotta show you, because look at that blue one.
Laughing.
Are you laughing?
She's like, I'm not gone, but look at all the stuff.
Sorry, I just couldn't do it. I thought we remembered. I thought we moved past that whole thing, and then she goes, "Look, but look."
Don't make me laugh.
Oh. My sides of my head hurt now.
Yeah, I was holding in. I felt like pass out. Oh my word.
Okay. So we can see that
you brought up the cracked pot.
I'm sorry. I was anyway. I'm sorry. That was on me.
We should tell people you got to listen to the end, because the best part's there.
The best part's at the end, yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So why can we see singleness as not a punishment or as not a bad thing? Because Jesus was single. I'm sorry. Like that. If being married and having kids was the ultimate end, the most blessed that anybody could be, wouldn't that have been what Jesus would have pursued?
I would think so.
Yep.
And so if he did not, and the same with Paul, was able to see that through God's grace as well, and share with us the 1 Corinthians 7 that that singleness is a gift. That
and there were others. There were many.
Yeah, there's
others.
even ones like Jeremiah and others were called to singleness. Like God specifically called them to that. And it's nice if God actually came to you and said, like, it'd be nice if he said, like, okay, my desire for your life rate is to be single forever. Like, then at least even if you don't want it to be that way. But there were,
that's funny, because Yolanda said that to me this morning. She says that's the thing about the will of God, is that you don't know, because he's not down here in your face going, this is my will for you.
I know. It's like if they'd only send me an itinerary, I would know where I'm supposed to
A
go and
text
do.
message, anything.
He's like, I gave you the whole Bible. What more do you need?
There's a lot of words in there. You know that,
We
right?
always
Which
want
one's
more.
mine?
TLDR, please.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Oh.
So yeah. So remember, the world is broken. Okay.
Not just Canada.
Not just Canada, the world.
Yeah.
Sometimes there might not be someone to marry. Ask some of these Chinese men, where there's literally millions more men than women. Like sometimes that's the way, through sinful actions, an imbalance was created.
Yeah.
And, evil desire of, promoting men over women led to a lot of women being, aborted or left to die, a lot of girl babies. So that was just an example. I'm not pointing China out as the only thing, but it's just a very dramatic example.
Yeah.
A very dramatic example, because literally millions difference.
I think India did that too, because women because when you have a girl, you have to pay a price for them.
At least it was originally that way, and technically it's not legal anymore like that, but they still do it in some places. They get around it. But anyway, so there's and I'm not going to even just say other countries. Canada has their own issues, whatever. But just saying,
I'm pretty sure people do it here too.
Yeah. And so I'm just saying, like, sometimes there isn't anyone to marry because of sin, or, I'm sure some of these places where all their men got killed during wars, like all of a sudden there's more women than men. Like that's what happens.
Population imbalance. Yeah.
And so that's not anyone's fault in the sense of like who sinned, them or their parent. Like it was the sin of that's in the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might be that God has somebody for you. It's just not now. So he's like, hello, this is not the time for that. Like, I'll worry about that. You just get on what I want you to do. So instead of maybe people like trying to find a reason, or especially external from you, like you have enough time. We have enough time as single people, like berating ourselves why we didn't get married. We don't need extra help or fodder, especially from the places that are supposed to be like encouraging us and not trying to find an answer for the problem of singleness. The answer is that you're single because you're not married. That's really the answer. It is nothing more than that. If you were married, you wouldn't be single. If you're single, you're not married. Other things, it's just like, why are you not a doctor? Because you're not even in medical school yet. You're working your way towards it. Why that's almost like asking that type of question.
Yeah.
Why are you not at this point yet? Because we haven't got there yet. That could be what God's calling you to do. But like we just said, God, as much as we'd like him to come and, tell us a plan he has for us in the sense of details and very specific direction, he doesn't work like that. But he knows where it's headed. He knows if there's someone called for you. He knows if children are in the future for you. Your job right now is to, if you work on becoming a godly person, man, woman, you will become a godly wife, mother, husband, father. That's why I don't like when people say, I need to train my child to be a godly husband or a godly father. It's like, just train your child your boy to be a godly man. And yes, you can tell them, give them advice on what it would be to apply these principles within marriage or as a father or as a mother. But it doesn't, that's not the purpose that you're trying to raise them to be, that because you don't know that that's what they're going to be. But you know that they should be a godly human person. And that should be your goal. It should be raising a godly child, that instead of specifically deciding where they're going to go. Yeah. And so sometimes singleness can result from God's calling or timing. Sometimes it's life circumstances. Sometimes it's wounds, trauma. Like people have been through it before. They're scared to go through it again.
Gun shy.
Yeah. And it's part sin, and sometimes lack of healthy community or options. Like you, as a Christian, you don't necessarily want to go to a bar to find a guy. It doesn't mean it could never happen. A good guy there, but
chances are pretty slim.
Yeah, like you don't like, but I'm just like, these are like they like to emphasize that these are reasons. It's not a fault.
No.
Like there's a reason things happen, but it's not an excuse or it's a fault or something that needs to be corrected that you can specifically correct.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Because sometimes it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Well, and then the question is like, so God, what are you trying to do through me? What do you want to do through me? What do you want me to do? Or sometimes all he just is like, I just want you to trust me.
Do what you're doing. And
as a mom, it's very difficult sometimes. Not so much to trust, but to not have that fear attached to the trust. Because I have that right now as Amber has to go for another brain surgery in a couple of days. I trust God, but I'm still scared. And that's normal. And I'm being told that's normal and that's okay. And it's okay to feel that conflict. It doesn't mean that God's not going to help you because you're not trusting 100%. It just means that you're human and that you have feelings and that, it's just life. And you just got to keep taking that step. You just got to keep taking one step at a time, one day at a time, not try to run ahead of God and try to fix it for him. Because he does need our help.
No, we often mess things up.
Yeah.
More often than pretty much every time if we try to go ahead of them.
Yeah.
So yeah. So within your singleness, just kind of ask yourself how you can live purposefully right now, whether this changes or not. Your singleness, like, is not even a consideration. How can we live a stewardship-filled life right now? God has given us this life to steward. All the things that we have given in the moment to steward, our work, our school, home, our everything, every single solitary thing that we have is only because God has given it to us, whether it's our brain and being able to do things and think and write and read and all those nice things, straight down to our jobs, to the homes that we have, to any possession we have, any money that we have. So it's only there because God has given it to you. How are you going to use it?
Yeah.
Are you going to use it like the steward who buried it in the ground waiting for the guy to come back? And essentially that's kind of what you do when you put your life on hold waiting for this marriage thing.
Yeah.
You're not stewarding well. So you just got to ask yourself those things and try to remember, like, you're not a broken person. We're all broken with our sin, but you're not broken because you're single.
No,
That's not a broken thing.
So check the lies that you're telling yourself. It took me a long time to tell myself that, to stop believing in the lies that I wasn't good enough. Some days that still hangs over me, but
I mean,
I think I'm getting.
some people don't ever
Yeah.
develop the foresight to
It's-
see their own problems, right? Once we have that foresight, then
Yeah.
you'd be surprised how easy life becomes.
Yep. And,
So
and on the flip side of that, if you are living in sin, living your life as as a Christian person, but you're doing things that you know are wrong, you do need to confess
repent
that.
and stop
And-
doing those things.
Yeah.
And being single isn't a sin.
No, being single is not a sin. Doing sinful things in your singleness is.
So remember, your singleness doesn't need an apology. It needs purpose. So you don't have to defend yourself being single. You shouldn't have to, but sometimes we do because people attack it. But otherwise, generally, within your own heart, you do not need to apologize for being single.
No.
It's not a sin. But like Bonnie said, what you do within your singleness can be. And that's the purpose that God has created you to be. You need to follow that.
Yeah. And know that you are blessed. God loves you more than you can imagine. He does not want to hurt you. He doesn't want to harm you. He doesn't want to destroy your life. He wants to give you purpose. He's got plans for you. He knows where he wants you to go, what he wants you to do, where he wants you to be, how he wants you to be. And that is a child of God.
So here's a verse from that section, John 9, verse 4. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. So instead of saying, why am I single? Woe is me. Being like, hey, I'm alive. I'm here. God's calling me to something. What is that? And usually it's what is that for that today? And if it's something in the future, how do I feel like he's calling me to pursue that in the moment? Because again, that might change.
Yeah. Yeah. We're only given today. Tomorrow has its troubles of its own. Yeah.
Well, that's our episode for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that it helped give you some purpose or some
Foresight.
Foresight. That's a good one. Some relief from maybe thinking there's something wrong with you. And there's not. There's a lot. I mean, there might be a lot, but not because of singleness.
No.
So anyway.
There's always a lot wrong with everyone. Come to Christ.
Is he stopped?
Read the Bible.
No, I think there's a dog barking outside, and so he can't get to them to tell them off or whatever.
He's agreeing with us.
Anyway.
He can't go through the pet door?
Oh, he is. He's going out and in.
Oh.
So he chased Jess back in, so I don't know.
Oh, he says, no, there's bad things out there. Get back inside.
Yeah. Anyway, well, we'll leave it at that. And we hope that you will all come back and listen next time. Thanks for listening.
And we hope you enjoyed the humor over the cracked pots.
Yes. Monique's going to be still looking at those for hours afterwards. So.
No, but I might have to find me one.
Spin-off. Fun with pots.
Well,
if
you really think about it, that imagery is actually very beautiful, because once you're made into a pot, you can't, the pot is hard, the clay can't be made soft again to be made into a new pot. It's broken, its pieces. But if God comes and he infuses all these pieces and puts it together with gold, isn't that gloriously redeemed?
Yes. So
bye for now.
Bye.
With that thought, bye. Whether you've blamed yourself, someone else, or even God for your singleness, take heart. As we saw in John 9, Jesus shifts the conversation from blame to purpose. Your story isn't broken, it's being used. And maybe, just maybe, the cracks in the pot are exactly where his glory shines through. So remember, your singleness doesn't need an apology, it needs purpose. And you are deeply loved, fully seen, and never disqualified from the work God wants to do through you right now. Thanks for spending time with us today. If this episode encouraged you, share it with a friend and come hang out with us next time on the Route 77 podcast. And remember to live your single life to its fullest.